It's good. I'm going to call the meeting to order. Who reads the adequate notice? I do. That's my job, huh? Adequate notice of meeting. The written notice was sent to the office of the Secretary of the Board at 7:34 a.m. on February 5th, 2026, with two different times. But we are starting at 6:30 because that's what the agenda says. That said notice was sent via email to Maplewood and South Orange Township clerks and the editors of the News Record Star Ledger, Tap Into Soma, and the Village Green. Please call the roll.
Of course, thank you. I will call the roll, beginning with Mayor Victor Luca.
I'm here.
Deputy Mayor Malia Herman.
Here.
Committee Person Nancy Adams.
Here.
Committee
Hi.
Person Jane Collins Colding. Not here, okay. Mayor Sheena Collum.
Here.
Councilmember Jennifer Greenberg.
Here.
Councilmember Olivia Lewis Chang.
Here.
Councilmember Bill Haskins.
Here.
Board President Will Meyer.
Here.
Board Member Jeff Bennett.
Here.
Board Member Malini Nair.
Here.
Right, quorum.
Thank you. Please join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Okay, we have, the next item is approve the Board of School Estimate meeting minutes, and I understand they go back to around 2024? Is that correct?
They go back to 2021.
2021. So some of us up here were not on the board at that time. Is there some advice that someone could give us as to whether we can act on this?
Is that the button? Okay. So there isn't a prohibition on the fact that you weren't on the board at the time. As I understand it, this was discovered when there was an open request received for certain minutes. The business office then reviewed all of the video recordings of the meetings and prepared the minutes based upon the actual video recordings of them. So essentially, at this point, you're approving the business office's work to create these minutes. And so, again, you don't need to have been at them to approve them.
Okay.
Did we receive them?
They're on the website.
Oh,
I'm not
sorry.
gonna
vote.
Yeah,
I'm gonna motion to table it
Yeah.
until the next meeting. And if it could be distributed to the members to at least review the written record before we approve them.
Yeah, I can't vote on something
Okay.
I haven't read.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded that we table. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Discussion items. We have three discussion items this evening. One is the role and purpose of the Board of School Estimate. Second is the discussion of the district's finances. And third, what proposals might be coming to the Board of School Estimate. So let's start with the role and purpose of the Board of School Estimate. Oh, we have it behind us, or do we have it behind us?
That's the same thing.
Thank you. I'll be brief here.
Good. Good. That's what we want.
And my name is Patrick Carrick. I'm the board attorney for the South Orange Maplewood Board of Education. I was asked to prepare a brief presentation on the role of the Board of School Estimate for tonight. So this is my brief presentation of that. Basically, in short, the Board of School Estimate of a Type 2 school district. A Type 2 school district is one with an elected board as opposed to an appointed board. This is an elected board. The Board of School Estimate has two primary roles. It's to fund capital projects at the request of the Board of Education, or to authorize what's called additional funding, or sometimes referred to as a separate proposal. And that's when the Board of Education wants to exceed the permissible tax levy and other exceptions and ask for additional tax levy. So with respect to capital projects, essentially what happens in those situations is the Board of Education identifies its need for capital projects that are going to be supported by bonds. It goes through a process with the state to get authorization for the issuance of bonds and approval of the project, and then they take a vote. The vote that they take there has to have a 2/3 support. And then once they have that 2/3 support, they send that to the Board of School Estimate for approval. There's a magic window of time for the Board of School Estimate approval, which is between 15 days and 30 days after the board sends over the certified costs and the proposed project. And so this has happened a few times since I've been board attorney with respect to capital projects. In terms of how a Board of School Estimate works with respect to a budget, it receives a copy of the board's base budget, and that's about it. The board goes through the process every spring to submit a budget for to the DOE. It goes through a county approval process. As part of that process, as a courtesy, it is sent to the Board of School Estimate, but the BOSE ultimately does not have any role in approving the base budget for the Board of Education. That differs with a type 1 district where the Board of School Estimate does have a role in approval, but that's a different set of circumstances that doesn't apply here. What they do have a role in is if in that base budget, the Board of Education asks for a separate proposal to raise the tax levy. From time to time, boards of education feel that the limitation on what they can raise, which is usually capped at 2%, plus certain exceptions to exceed it, is not enough. And so they'll come to a Board of School Estimate to ask for additional tax levy. Where a school district has a Board of School Estimate, it essentially replaces a referendum where a board goes out to a public question to the voters to then pass the additional tax levy. So this substitutes for that. And then, so there's a separate process for the proposal or the separate proposal or additional funds. Essentially, the board prepares two budgets, a base budget that's going to meet thorough and efficient education, and then a secondary one that would include that separate proposal where they're telling the Board of School Estimate, these are the additional things that we would like you to fund through additional tax levy. And once they go through that process, if the BOSE approves it, it'll become part of the tax levy going forward in perpetuity. If the BOSE does not support it, then those additional funds don't come in and the board still proceeds under its base budget. I have a lot of information in terms of the technical processes for it, but I don't think we don't need all that tonight since it's not really before us. Every year, the state issues an election calendar / budget calendar. And so, my last slide, that election calendar specifies when the Board of School Estimate gets its version of the base budget. And again, that's all it gets in this situation because they don't do any vote on it. If there was a separate proposal to be sent to them, then there is a process through that election calendar as to when they are going to vote to approve the separate proposal or not. South Orange Maplewood is one of the few districts in the state that has a Board of School Estimate for a Type 2 school district. I could only find two others, one in Passaic County and one in Bergen County. It's got one of the only cases that I could find that relates to the processes for approval. What this case basically says is that to approve a separate proposal or to approve a capital project, you need a majority of the Board of School Estimate. But because there are two members of the Board of School Estimate that are school board members themselves, there's a little bit different counting that goes on. And so in this particular case, what they basically said is you need a majority of the township members, but not necessarily a majority in both townships. And so ultimately the decision was a majority of the members of the full BOSE need to support the proposal. a majority of the members appointed by the participating townships need to support. So in a situation where you have 6 members, 3 and 3 from 2 towns, if one town has 2 members vote against and 1 member for, you don't have a majority of that town. But if the other town, all 3 were to vote, now you've got 4 there against the 2 on the other side. You do have a majority of the townships represented, and that is sufficient for passage of the separate proposal or additional funding. So essentially what they said is 2 members of a town do not have veto power over everyone else. And that's pretty much it.
Thank you. We might have some questions. I don't know if you want to do it there or over here.
Whatever is best.
Okay. Anyone have any questions? I have a question. I haven't served on the Board of School Estimate for a long time, but I remember the debates at that time as to whether or not members of the Board of School Estimate could substitute their own judgment on budget items. And I think at that time, we were doing courtesy reviews of the operating budget, and people were wondering why, they wanted to move around items. I remember being told that we have no authority to move around items. Is that correct?
So now with respect to a base budget for a school district, since you don't vote at all, there's nothing to do there. Years ago, when elections were in April, and you used to send out your budgets to the voters or to the Board of School Estimate. The Board of School Estimate, obviously, since it represents the voters, it could say no to a budget. And then there was a process for a defeated budget. In townships that had voters vote on it, there was a process for a defeated budget. So that's how it used to apply. Once the change was made by law to go to the 2% cap, to go to November elections, you didn't have to go to the town anymore. In a similar way, you didn't have to go to the Board of School Estimate anymore. And so that's been now for quite some time, since 2008 or 9 or so. In terms of what you do now with the 2 areas that you do have involvement in, with the additional funding, the separate proposals, you're limited to the separate proposal for the most part, because they're presenting to you, this is what we need for these additional things. There's already a base budget that's going to meet thorough and efficient education that is, if you defeat that, the base budget's just going to go through anyway, and that'll be how the district is funded going forward. With regard to capital projects, this is where there's a little bit possibly more nuance there. Again, you're representing the voters. You're going to authorize what you think is appropriate in terms of the capital projects that are presented to you. Depending on how they're presented, sometimes it's a single project with one funding. It's really hard to divide that up. Sometimes it's split up into different things, and you may have different yeses and no votes on those separate proposals. So there's a little bit more discretion for Board of School Estimate matters with members with regard to capital projects, again, depending on how they are presented to the BOSC. If, for example, there's 4 items presented and you vote yes on 3 and no on 1, then the Board of Education has to determine, okay, are we going to be good with that and move forward with that? They can pass another proposal after the fact, accepting the funds and moving forward. They can rely upon their initial that they passed all 4. They accepted 3. We'll just rely on the initial that, that's fine. But outside of what's proposed to you, you really can't go in line item veto it.
So let's say on a capital budget, they come to us with 4 items that total $100. And we say, we want to spend A, B, and C, but we don't want to spend D. You're saying we can do that?
Yes, if it is presented to the Board of School Estimate as 4 options with 4 separate abilities to vote on, yes. If it was packaged as 1 when presented to the Board of School Estimate, then you're really voting on just 1 project. It really depends on how it's ultimately presented. If you decide I want to just do A, B, and C and not D, then it kind of goes back to the Board of Education to say, well, do we want to do that at all? Because it's not the project necessarily, or the total projects that we submitted. It's not unlike the House sending it to the Senate approves something else, and then it goes back to the House and they decide, do we want to approve what the Senate gave us, or do we want to, scrap it all together or go back to the Senate again?
But we would not have a right in that same example to say, we want to fund A, B, and C, and we don't want to fund D, but we want to use that $25 to add to A.
Yeah, that would not be appropriate.
Any questions? Okay, thank you very much. All right, our next item is the district finances.
Thank you, Mayor DeLuca. Jason Bing, our superintendent, and I will kind of double team this process, but I'll lead off. Again, Imani Moody, School Business Administrator. As we all know, budgeting in the state of New Jersey for all the school districts remains a challenge, with the major burden being on local taxpayers for the 2% property tax cap. And we find that to be an inequitable funding formula. We've been advocating across the state. The superintendent has spoken in Trenton. And we've essentially been underfunded for years due to that cap. Our current outlook, as we navigate the budget process, is that we began with probably around an $8 million projected funding shortfall for next year. In the process, where we've interfaced with senior district leadership, with our board, with budget advisory committees, and explored lots of ideas, essentially, we've whittled that down to a preliminary budget gap of around $3 million. Now, we anticipate being able to actually balance this budget within our statutory tax levy, within the allowances in that tax levy. We do not foresee sending a separate question to the Board of School Estimates. We have some guiding principles in our process. We are committed to, zero reductions in force. This is what we're having as one of our guiding principles in our funding process and our balancing process for the district budget for next year. And we're continuing to scrutinize all vacancies, whether through resignation, termination, or attrition, before rehiring. We've done a lot of that work within this budget year to allow for the right sizing of the staff across the district. So we do have strategic priorities. That is, we're attempting to protect our classrooms and educators and support staff from reductions in force. We're maximizing the usage of our current staff. We want to ensure competitive compensation for our teachers and make sure that they're fairly rewarded. And we also are committed to maintaining safe and supportive environments through our facilities work. That's a difficult challenge given the age of our facilities. We're also working towards operational efficiency by really renegotiating any contract that's available for renegotiation, trying to engage in structural change initiatives within those contracts to just optimize them. And we're also looking at bringing in new in-house skilled labor. We did that for our prior year budget, and we're continuing to look at that. Essentially, we regard this particular inflection point as a call for partnership across the community and helping to advocate for changes in the funding formula, but then also to bear with the district as it makes tough choices that limit the skyrocketing expenditures and are continuing to operate within the limitations of our revenue sources, that being the cap on taxation. So, that's what I'll lead with, but if you want to supplement.
Oh, good. Thank you. I don't think we need to go into detail about how arduous the budget cycle is for us as well as municipalities. We have a 2% cap currently, and we have a state funding formula that doesn't benefit the South Orange Maplewood School District. We've been underfunded by about, Jeffrey, this is your cue, about $1.5 million every year?
1.6 million for this current school year.
About 1.6 every year. We've gone down to Trenton to advocate, and I think our last discussion was hopefully going down collectively. So it's the same wicked cycle that we're caught in every single year. For us, it's obviously revenue's not there. It never will be there. We're a public school system. We really rely on retirement, attrition. We rely on efficiencies of services. This district in particular has kind of tapped its efficiencies, privatizing almost everything close to a decade ago. There is not a service that we currently use that is controlled in-house, whether it's custodial, security, busing, everything has been privatized over the last 10 years. Some of our work over the last year and a half has been re-examining that ideology that we'll be saving money through privatization, which you do to start off with, and then it levels off, and that's where we are right now. So for us, we brought back skilled maintenance workers last budget. We put that in. That has saved us, and I do not have the correct numbers, but we've had about 5 pipe bursts and flooding over the last 2 months, and we have a plumber on staff who's able to go in and work instead of calling a private person in and paying through the nose. So we're looking really to invest in long-term things that are going to pay off, such as our special services programming. Last year, we expanded some of our special education programming to keep kids in district. Right now, we're averaging $120,000 per year per student that goes out of district, including transportation. So we expanded our ERI program. We're now expanding that again to keep kids in-house. And we're also opening that up to other districts. So currently, I believe we have about 4 tuitions from other districts that don't have these programs. And we brought them in. Right now, we're also working on some audits, whether that's energy, whether that's custodial, just to really see if, hey, are we utilizing our personnel correctly? Are we utilizing our energy correctly? We know we're not. You've seen our buildings. They are quite old. So we're looking not only at a behavior change, which is no investment, and also an ESIP, which is LED lighting, your solar panels, and hopefully some of that will be covered by the state. So for the last 2 years, we've been doing a zero-based budget, just literally going over line by line. Any positions, as Amani noted, that do not need to be filled, we are not filling. We transferred, I would say, around 50 people last year to vacancies that would normally be filled with outside hires, saving probably close to around $3.5 to $4 million.
Yeah, I would say that's a good estimate.
And that's the plan this year as well. We have already done a personnel audit. That was part of our work last year. So we know everyone's certification. We know where they are. So if we do have vacancies, we're looking in-house instead of looking to hire. For us, I think moving forward, some of our sweet spots are those privatizations, whether it's paras, whether it's lunch aides, whether it's busing. Right now, we're possibly looking at bringing in some vans to the district to handle our McKinney-Bento students. That we have to pay a 55-passenger bus to bring 10 kids or maybe 8 kids. And right now with new legislation, we can pay a teacher a stipend to drive that bus drive that van, as long as it's 7 kids or under. So, yeah, we're looking at a variety. Our big switch over the last 3 months has been health insurance. We would not have been able to survive the state increase of 33%. We had to get out. So we're now in a private fund. We worked closely with our associations and made that switch. So that our current insurance is only increasing 11% instead of the 33% that was planned. So we're looking at everything at this point. We're also going out for requests for proposals for the first time, probably in about 7 or 8 years for a good majority of our services. 1, to keep our vendors honest, and 2, to see what rates we can get from different folks around the state. We're also working, we have a new transportation action committee. We're working pretty hard to lower our transportation costs. I mean, at this point, we believe we've made some inroads into that, that hopefully we'll be sharing over the next couple weeks, but we're still working on it. Anyone who's traveled in the morning knows that this town is getting more and more congested. On our end, we're trying to take buses off the street and trying to optimize times when those buses are on the street, where people aren't driving to work or people aren't driving to school. So we're looking at a wide variety of things right now. We're also hoping, I know Senator Ruiz has some legislation out there about funding infrastructure. We're hoping that the new governor coming in will possibly bring back a form of SDA. She knows more than anyone that these buildings are falling apart. And it's not just particular us. Care where you go, we have some of the oldest schools in the country. That's the reality. And we need that 40% to cover those infrastructure changes. So we're hoping that'll come down the pike as well. So yeah, it's that same wicked cycle. We've talked about it for years. It has not changed. And this new funding formula has been fully funded as of last year. And it is not benefiting us, nor will it until something changes. Shared services as well. We just had a good conversation with Nance. We'll continue those conversations with the towns in regards to seeing what we can share.
Okay, great. Any questions? So just so we're clear, well, thank you for all the work that you've done to close the gap. And what you've said to us is that there will not be a separate proposal for additional funding. Is that correct?
We do not anticipate making a separate proposal. No, we're attempting to really fund the budget within the statutory tax cap,
Which is a 2% cap?
2%, and then any associated waivers.
Right.
So right now, and I think you're getting the questions as well as we are, because we just submitted our long-range facility plan about, I'd say 5 months ago. So for us, and we've talked about this before, it is not a spending plan. I get a lot of emails saying, "What are you spending 150 million?" It is not a spending plan. It is a wish list we submit to the state. It is required by the state every 5 years, so we can apply for funding if the state does decide to bring back something like SDA or ROD grants or something. It's required to submit if we want to apply for those grants. It is not a spending plan. We just made the transition to a new director of facilities. So Tom left us, who was wonderful. So we just switched over to Henry. So he took a look at our long-range facility plan, which we prioritize with 1, 2, or 3, 1 being the job needs to be done within a year and a half. We took that list and then really ran down everything in the district that needed to be done by code or safety. So we're now at about $10.5 to $12 million that we believe we could finance ourselves over the next 3 years to make those fixes. So that's where we currently sit with the long-range facility plan.
Great. Any comments or questions? Go ahead.
Anybody else have anything?
No.
Okay, so when you talk about the 2% cap, it's one of my favorite topics because, it was introduced under Christie's era. And what was interesting is that, and it is partisan, is that all these exemptions were carved out. Like it was almost like gerrymandering. But then those in control of the legislature never said, okay, we need to stop referring to this as a 2% cap because the unfunded obligations that are going to schools and to municipalities far exceed anything close to a 2% cap. You can't be in the state health benefits plan as we are, see a 33% increase and over 110% increase in 5 years, and then be expected to live by a 2% cap. And when pension obligations are far exceeding anything close on the municipal side to a 2% cap. So it's very disingenuous, not from the board, but from the state to keep calling it a cap because it's not really a cap. They've drawn out so many exemptions. What are the major drivers of exemptions that are within the school district budget that fall outside of that appropriations cap?
So just real quick. So as you recall, when Christie put this in place, there had to be Sheena, correct me if I'm wrong, probably about 40 exemptions.
Yeah.
That list has been now diminished to about, I think they're at 15, or I think about 15 right now. One of those, and I'll let Amani, how many is it? I know they've slowly reduced them.
For school districts, the exemptions are enrollment, healthcare, And then like in theory, we get a pension exemption, but our pension obligations are very, very small. So that hasn't been a big factor in why we've gone above 2% so many years. But enrollment certainly and healthcare. And incidentally about enrollment, like after COVID, our enrollment actually fell by 800 students and then it slowly rebounded, although not to the point it was before COVID. So it works kind of like a ratchet, actually. We get enrollment adjustments for our rebound, even though it's only a partial rebound. So if hypothetically like, our enrollment had fallen from like 7,100 to 6,700, which is what it is for K-12 right now, we wouldn't have gotten a tax act adjustment. But actually, since it's like rebounded from like, under 6,500 to now like in the 6,700 range, we do get an adjustment. Kind
For
of-
those who don't remember the history, there was, well, I'm not gonna say any positive about Christie. So, there was good intent behind, before Christie, not allowing districts to go to the 12, there were districts going to 12%, 8%, 9%, so they wanted to find a balance. 2% wasn't a balance in our humble opinion, and they're still not there yet. They've been arguing this for years.
Yeah.
But when we went down to the state funding formula, the way they are currently funding districts just doesn't benefit us at all. And it's leaving money on the table that we should be
Can you
getting.
explain the enrollment exemption? Because we don't
Yeah.
have that on the
Let me-
municipal side, so I'd like to just
If I
understand
may,
that.
yeah, I'll speak to the various different waivers, as we call them.
Okay.
And the ones that are the major ones that are applicable, for us. As Mr. Bennett mentioned, it's healthcare costs, enrollment, and then additional participation in the employer share of PERS.
Okay.
Now, what we do see is that, again, the waivers that will be explored are associated with healthcare. Clearly, we're seeing skyrocketing healthcare costs, even after the circumstance that we've anticipated this and changed away from the state plan to a plan that's self-insured, that we anticipate much less in the way of projected growth. However, to the extent that there is that growth, then we would be allowed to apply for that waiver as well, right?
Okay.
So that's now from an enrollment standpoint, we're currently at about 7,143 students. And the DOE has estimated that we'll grow to 7,217 students. That's an increase of 74 students. So that would make for an enrollment waiver as well. It'd be much smaller, but it would have some financial impact.
But what do you mean? Yeah, like when you say enrollment, is there a dollar amount associated with the student that anything above that amount is considered a waiver?
Well, no, meaning when there is growth year over year in your enrollment, and that growth eclipses a certain percentage, I believe it's around 2%, then actually the money follows the student,
Yeah.
right? So
Mhm.
if you're projected to have an increase in students, you're going to have an increase in your enrollment-based funding. So currently, we're looking at a situation where the numbers that we're working with are a move from 7143 to 7217. We anticipate that having about a $40,000 impact.
Okay, so it's
Right.
nothing significant.
And I think we are, and correct me if I'm wrong, I think we are back to pre-pandemic numbers. I think we were at
If-
7,100 was our high.
If you include pre-K students, we're at the pre-pandemic level, but just for K-12, we're still down by a few hundred students.
But Board Member Bennett, you probably remember better than all of us because you are a walking Wikipedia, is that when we had the demographic report that was presented to the district, is that it anticipated, I think the district would be close to 8,000 students at this point, right? Or something close to it?
I do remember that 2017 demographic report and it predicted like in this year, we'd have like 7,500 students,
Okay,
which has just turned out to not be the case, as we all know.
okay.
But there's actually a long history of demographic reports going back, which have been very erroneous. Like in like the 1960s, they predicted like we'd have like 10,000 students. And then the 1970s, they were predicting like our enrollment would like crash to like 5,000 students. So there's a long history of demographers getting it wrong. Although our most recent demographic report, which was done in 2023, is much more accurate.
Okay.
And in like the early 2010s, my first board term, like then the demographers got it right. But the 2017 demographic report did end up being erroneous.
Well, it's good to know that our enrollment is back to the pre-pandemic
So
levels.
the latest demographic, they use two formulas.
Mhm.
So they use the one that our state software utilizes, and they are literally one off last year. That's how close they were. The other formula they used was an experience formula that said we were going to be dropping in student population, which was interesting. So the state formula has really held up pretty strongly.
Okay, great. Any other questions? You good?
Hold on one second. So you also referenced that as a part of the $150 million wish list outside of this existing long-range facilities plan is that 10.5 to 12 million have been identified as code or safety related. Is that correct? And so you're anticipating, even though you're not coming back to us for $150 million, and you shouldn't, is that the next round of long-range facilities requests to the Board of School Estimate will start off with the code and safety related items or no?
Well, we're going to be handling those. That's the plan.
That
For the
can
next
be
3 years, we're going to
Absorbed
handle
within
that.
your existing budget?
We want to handle that 10.5 million.
Okay, so that's 10.5 to 12 million. That's good to know also. And then something we discussed on the Budget Advisory Committee and something that I think the district is rightfully addressing is your fund balance right now.
Yep.
And so could you speak a little bit more, less to perhaps maybe us, but more to the public about the strategy for the fund balance to make sure that you're in a good financial position?
Yeah, we just spoke with the county BA today. So let Monty give you a little summary of it.
Absolutely. So in last year's budget process, folks may recall that my central theme was the decline in fund balance and the fact that we needed to alter course. So in the 25-26 budget, we did consider around, it was 13.852 million to be used of fund balance. Now, there is a component of that which is given to us by our auditors, which is about 6.893 million. And then we did, which we had to put aside for use. And then there was a component that was our maintenance reserve of 2.5 million. Okay, so that maintenance reserve funded a lot of our 25-26 maintenance efforts. That said, we do project that we'll be returning about $1 million of that maintenance reserve back to our maintenance reserve from this budget year. We also anticipate that in this 26-27 budget year, we'll bring down the dollar amount of intended use of fund balance considerably. We'll be saving money in the 25-26 year for use in the 26-27 year to the tune of around $5.5 million. So the full dollar amount of fund balance use that we anticipate would go down from about 13.8 to about 11. Now, within this recapitulation of fund balances, it's the major story affecting all school districts. Essentially, we by statute must actually save certain amounts for the 2 subsequent years. But we're also called upon to save within our current budget year to move forward dollars for our next year and also to replenish reserves. It's a multi-year process. It's one that the district, currently has to engage in. It's sort of lessening its dependence on using fund balance that we save in a prior year by making structural change within the school district. Now, that structural change can come from, lessening the number of buses in our transportation contract, lessening the number of custodians we deploy across the district, lessening the number of security. There has to be structural change to do the savings to be able to bring monies back to fund balance in sequential years. So that's what's driving our budget process year over year, but it is a multi-year process to add back to those reserves and to add back to fund balance.
Follow up, if I can, Mr. Chair. And I've been really impressed the way that you're talking about that because we're a little crazy on the municipal side about the fund balances and utilization of it for, the years. What I didn't hear is you said $13.8 million used. What is your typical balance? Not the utilization, but where is your balance sitting at?
Yeah, and that's what is a very difficult question that's typically faced by auditors and BAs around the state. There's no typical, right? There is use of fund balance. There is, suggested fund balance to have to be safe for subsequent years. But you know, it is there for us to actually use when necessary to balance the subsequent year budgets, but we have to, you know, derive our efforts towards lessening that use and adding back to it. Now, there's no, we've badgered our auditors and various folks around the state with that question as well. What is the optimal percentage fund balance? And it's never a direct question. It really depends, and that's the answer we always get.
No, I understand that, but like if you have a $200 million operating budget today, how much do you have in fund balance?
Well, I mean, I could pull up the audit and show what, as of the end of fiscal year 25,
Yeah.
what we had in fund balance. And then I could, you know, look at financials to see where we currently are and what we project to be at the end of year. But I don't have the audit in front of me. But
Mhm.
I do know that, well, I'm looking at budget documents now, so I'm looking at how we're using fund balance, not the static level at a particular time. I could give you that information by looking at our
That
audit.
would actually be really helpful
Yeah.
too, because we're actually, both towns have, I
Mm.
think, spent a lot of time building our fund balance. So I would
Mhm.
say that, you know, we have a $55 million operating budget, we have $13 million in fund balance, right?
Wow.
So we've been building and we know that we get the impacts of increasing in bond ratings, when
Mhm.
we get those nice little notices like, you're doing a good job.
Yep.
And again, it's not money to be spent, but what we did do was pass a policy is that we would never spend money from the fund balance in the preceding year budget unless we were fully confident that we could replenish it. So we're almost getting to that place of maintenance right now. So it would be, and I don't know for school districts, I'm sure everybody says, you know, it's either a month of expenses, 3 months of expenses, 20% of your budget. What is the best practice that your CFO and auditors are recommending so that we have an idea for your operating budgets moving forward is
Mhm.
not only what you can apply to your operating budget, but
Sure.
how much you have to set aside to get to that optimal number over the next 5 years.
Yeah, and I'd be happy to come back to you with a thought process on that. But what I'm saying is that in our efforts to zero in on that very, you know, the way you positioned it, it was very straightforward. 200 million, you know, we set a level, we don't want to go beneath it, and you make your decisions accordingly. But because of the fact that school districts are actually called upon to use that fund balance and replenish it, I think more frequently, it becomes more of a complex answer to what is the optimal level. But I can gather some thoughts on that from our auditors and workshop that internally and get you some information.
That would be really helpful.
Mhm.
That's it, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Anyone else have any questions? Okay, so that was very helpful. And now let us go into what proposals you're contemplating bringing to the Board of School Estimate.
Okay, so I think it's been said already here today that we're not contemplating coming up with a big array of projects to then come back to the Board of School Estimates with. What we have done is, consistent with our requirements, set forth a long-range facilities plan that we have to do every 5 years, right? That's our grand wish list of everything that we could contemplate. So we do that as a matter of due course. But within that long-range facilities plan, we have, over the transition, our facilities directors put our eyes on exactly what we believe to be urgently necessary. So we set priority levels. The priority level 1 assessment kind of rendered about a $10.2 million array of projects. Now, that's not to say $10.2 million is the dollar amount of the impending bond request. No. What we're saying is that the $10.2 million in more urgent compliance-oriented projects in our schools will be our guiding light in subsequent budget years. So each of the next 3 years, we'll be looking at that list and deciding how we can whittle down that list through locally funded sources. So that's our plan. We don't have like an outlook of when we're going to come back for a large ask. I think, you know, we're attempting to really handle that stuff through our local budget. But I mean, we know we're on the heels of $187 million bond issuance over 2019 to 24. We know that we're currently contemplating a Ritzer project, which is a worthwhile project. It is a buildings and grounds project that would enhance the district, but that's the lay of the land for us currently.
So what's on table, excuse me, what's on the table right now is the Ritzer project, as you know. It's the Ritzer Field at about $7,745,692. It's the South Orange Middle School, their theaters at around 936,000. It's the Maplewood Middle School auditorium, around 2.2 million. So you're looking at a total of around 10.8, 10.9.
Anything else?
No, don't plan on bringing anything else to you all. I mean, we do want, obviously, part of this work is getting feedback and just hearing from our colleagues in regards to, maybe you should be doing this, maybe you should be doing that. For us, that's what we're hoping to get. And what you think the priority should be, and bring that back to our group.
Okay.
Questions?
Yep. Anyone have questions? Okay. Committee Member Adams.
Thank you. So we've all been hearing, obviously, from residents, but also just observing what's going on in schools. What we're hearing when we're not having this kind of discussion is things like facilities, like literally bathrooms in Columbia High School where students aren't even going to the bathroom because they're so bad. We're hearing other facilities inside the different schools, like the Seth Boyden gym is unusable, completely unusable, to where they're doing gym classes in the classrooms. So how does that not get those things and others like them not get a priority over, say, Ritzer, which is, not used as a field right now, it's except for practices. So I'd like to know how basic needs, like, because if my bathroom is unusable, I'm going to fix that before I'm going to do any recreational, like I'm not putting a tennis court in my yard. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So it doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah, I mean, for us, Ritzer, whether it's playgrounds for our special education students, that all falls under the infrastructure for us, needed infrastructure. We've had these conversations. There are not enough fields in this town. There are not. And we are growing. Our athletic program is growing. This used to be a big.
I understand. I know what you're saying. I want you to answer my question with regard to basic needs as opposed to
Right,
something
so-
you think we do, maybe we need, maybe we don't. If that's up to the Board of Ed to decide, but it's also, it seems to me that the basic stuff is vitally more important.
So something like you just mentioned, Seth Boyd. So we're fixing it in-house. We're not coming to you guys to fix that. We're using our funding. And that's really, I think, when we discussed the development of our 25-26 budget, that was one of our big objectives, to really take a look in-house, do an audit, and put facilities first. So and you know this, Dan, I'd say 20 years, facilities was the first thing to be cut when they're trying to balance budgets in SOSD. Last year was the first year we actually kept money in the budget for facilities. And we're starting those repairs that you're talking about, the basic repairs. Those repairs take a long time. They're not, I'll take a bathroom, for example. If we wanted to upgrade a bathroom, you're talking anywhere from 6 to 8 months. We just applied for the state water infrastructure grant for our secondary buildings that we're hoping to receive, which will address our bathrooms and our water fountains in those 3 buildings, which those 3 buildings probably have some of our worst bathroom issues. So we just sent more documentation back to the state a couple days ago for that grant. So we're hoping to bring in monies from the state as well to fix that. That grant was just put out about 7 months ago for the first time in probably about 4 years.
And Jason, if I could add something here, because I understand the nature of your question, right? You're talking about relative priority,
Mhm.
essentially. And I think sometimes, you have to look a little bit wider than that. We can't really juxtapose those two things. We have to do, we feel compelled to make adjustments to Ritzer. But also, we have other efforts going at Seth Boyden. We know at Seth Boyden, there's a drainage challenge that's been, decades, prior to our arrival. But what we have earmarked are unexpended fund balances from the prior bond issuance where we can redirect towards a Seth Boyden drainage project. That's actually on the horizon for us to, we've contracted with an architect, and we've scoped out a project to really directly address once and for all that Seth Boyden drainage challenge, which is the lower level gym that was affected by the water access for years. We have to address the source in order to then approach fixing that lower level gym. That project is being teed up for consideration across the fall and into next year for Seth Boyden drainage.
So that gymnasium has been fixed twice before and flooded again for a third time.
Yeah.
So this time we're trying to do it right in-house,
Well, you should.
which is actually going outside and inside in regards to drainage.
Mhm.
So as Amani said, that's something we had to wait until the summer to fix. But yeah, we plan on addressing that in-house. We plan on putting money in towards facilities
Okay.
and addressing our basic needs in-house.
Okay.
The one other thing I want to layer in is oftentimes, the complaints around bathrooms could be custodial in nature versus
Okay.
not functioning in nature, right? So what we're called upon to do is to comprehensively look at our deployment of custodians and our existing contract, and then give consideration to the extent to which we can make adjustments to that contract, make allocation changes to the personnel within that contract, and then also look at opportunities to bring head custodians back into individual buildings so that we can have them as staff, internally, and then contract out for the supporting personnel, right? We're looking at all of those circumstances to attempt to optimize the custodial distribution and the approach across the district, so that we can be more proactive. We can also have more agency with those personnel being in-house personnel.
Mhm.
Of course, we have to balance that with the increases in employer share of PERS that come with those personnel, with increases in workers' compensation, fees associated with those personnel. So all of that we're actively considering and looking at ways to optimize things, optimize deployment and cost benefit analysis to really show movement with those things that we're listening to what we're hearing from the community, from students, from our student representatives, and trying to approach them with different strategies.
Our goal is really the basics to do in-house. I mean, the CHS auditorium is a perfect example that's being done in-house.
Mhm.
We've just replaced the rigging. We're now working on the lighting. Then we'll work on the paint. All that's in-house because we invested in skilled maintenance folks. May take a little longer, but we're paying for that in-house. That would have gone out, for funding from you all. So we're trying to keep stuff in-house that we can manage.
I appreciate that, and I appreciate the thorough looking at all options, but I don't think that applied to Ritzer. When we talked, whenever the last time we had this conversation at Bose about the field, I specifically asked, did you at least get an idea of what it would cost to in-house maintain a natural grass field and what it would be to rebuild that field with natural grass, given the escalating costs? I mean, when I think it was a little over 2 million when we first brought up Ritzer
I think the
as
original
artificial
plan
turf.
A was about 4 point.
No, I think it was less than
Less?
that. Yeah.
2.4.
So now we're at $5 to $6 million more than that. And there's, to my knowledge, unless you correct me, which I would love to be corrected on this, the district has still not gone out for a comparison for what it would cost to build a natural grass field and in-house maintenance of that field as we're doing at DeHart. Because the community clearly spoke, at least Maplewood community, twice through referendum, against the artificial turf. So we listened to them then. So I've been really frustrated that even getting an estimate so you could compare what it would cost to build it with natural grass and what it would cost, as we're seeing, almost $8 million now.
Yeah, I mean, we're in the same boat as you. We're listening to our constituents. It's our students, it's our parents, it's our boosters.
It's
all
also the
saying-
residents.
All saying, residents as well, all
Yeah.
saying that we need more playability. Now, does that necessarily mean the expansiveness of?
Does that
our current
necessarily,
project?
see, so $8 million for a field that's going to have to be, so it's like $1 million a year for an artificial turf field, basically. If it's 8 to 10 life expectancy before it has to get replaced again. Over what we're doing at DeHart is 2.5,
2.7.
2.7 for natural grass of 2 fields. So
Okay.
that, I just wanted to get my
Yeah, no.
piece because I'm really frustrated that no, bid has gone out to getting at least an idea of what it would cost.
No, this is the feedback that we're looking for us, and I think we've said this a few times. Our main goal was meeting our students' needs and wants, and then playability. Now, what that may look like in the future, that's really up to the feedback we get.
Okay. Anyone else have questions, or we'll go here and then Bill?
Thanks. So I am also looking for more information from you on the number, and especially how the number has gone from what we were looking at last August to where we are now with the 7.7. So that kind of detail. As a parent of kids in the district, I know firsthand the vast needs of the district. I see needs for our special education students, our students who need working elevators, students who need the gym at Seth Boyden, like you mentioned, chemistry students who need a lab. Like, we have needs, definitely. We also need to be looking at the education for the whole child. So I think it's no surprise to anyone, I am in support of Richard. As a high school parent in particular, thank you for your email on the mental health crisis, happening right here. When we talk about education, we need to be talking about so much more than just what's happening in the building, because as we all know, it's these other things that our kids are involved in, from theater to music to athletics, that build the whole child. And we have seen, sports provide this kind of resilience and team learning and working together and depending on each other that we know are components of social emotional learning, which is so important when we have kids in the district. So I am a supporter of this plan. I want to hear more about these numbers, because, we are all seeing tax increases, and, we on the municipal side are working really hard to try and keep things as low as possible. I'm on the senior advisory committee, and we talk all the time about how people are getting priced out of our town, and they want to be able to stay here. They want to age in place, and they want to live here. And so this is important. These numbers are really high. I would like to have more clarity. I think a side-by-side comparison would be really helpful. I know that the maintenance of the fields is a really, really difficult piece, and it's expensive. And I'll be honest, even though we in Maplewood are looking at DeHart as a grass field, we don't yet have a plan for how we're going to adequately be able to maintain this field in the way that needs to be maintained. If you look at the baseball fields over at Underhill, they're grass fields. They're not in great shape. Our teams are ridiculed sometimes for, the poor shape that they are in. And, you need to have dedicated staff. Like, I know you're talking about not hiring any more staff. Are you able to hire maintenance, field maintenance individuals, people that will be there after school and on weekends, who can keep up the mowing, keep up all of the, these fields need to be re-leveled every several years. Then you need to have all of the edging. You need to have the mound built up. There's a lot that goes into the maintenance, and you can't just put it off on the people that you already have. Like, this is a specialized area. So, yes, to Ms. Adams' point in terms of getting a cost comparison, but I want to see real numbers of what it actually costs because that's expensive. And as you said, you know, we've got more and more needs of these fields.
So we're
You
also
know-
waiting, so we're in a bit of a holding pattern right now because we're also waiting to see what the debt service relief will be on that project,
Okay.
which may be anywhere from 25% to 40%. So we're currently waiting on those numbers right now, which obviously will play a big impact. For us also, we upgraded the stormwater system as per what we were hearing, significantly updated it from the original plan. So we updated that irrigation system as well, as you noted, for the natural
Mhm.
grass. But I also think that's a conversation as well for shared services. You know, if the decision is made that we want more natural grass out there, then that's, I was a superintendent of a district that had natural grass. It's a 4 to 6 man team that, as you noted, is just dedicated to the fields. Or woman team that's just dedicated to fields. So that's discussion I think we need to have between the three entities because we can't take that on by ourselves. We do not have that fiscal capacity. So that could be a future discussion amongst us.
Oh, we
regards
don't
to
have that
shared
capacity either.
services.
Maybe South Orange can do it. They've got.
Okay, okay.
They've got a lot of field people.
You had more?
Yeah, I want to ask specifically to correct the record on a couple of things that I've seen. The Project Adventure would not be lost in any of these plans. Is that correct?
Correct. So as of last time, we had, I would say about 2 months ago, we had Project Adventure in. And they gave us an assessment of what needed to be upgraded
Mhm.
in regards to the equipment. So we were thinking about doing both at the same time, where we would upgrade some of the equipment out there. It would be pushed back about, I think it was 5 feet. Nothing would change though. Everything would stay the same. It would be about a 5 feet pushback, and we would get new poles.
Okay.
We just had them in about 2 months ago.
And things like the walking path, seating for lunch, some grass areas, trees. Can you
Still
speak to the?
Still there in the
Yeah.
current plan we just submitted.
Okay, thank you. That's helpful. And then I just wanted to also check on the use because I believe that there are you're growing in terms of the sports that you're offering. I mean, we talk about football, baseball, softball, soccer, but then there's also obviously ultimate because we're the home of it. But I've been hearing a lot about girls flag football is a big one, and so we've got a lot of use, like a lot of needs. Like, can you like share a little bit about the needs of the field and why you see this as so critical? This is one of the ones you've listed as a critical item.
Yeah, I mean, we have a substantially growing athletic department on our end. And then we also obviously have recreation as well. I would say I receive about 5 or 6 emails from either private clubs or recreation a week in regards to field usage that we just don't have, that we have to deny on a regular basis. So part of our work is not only working with the clubs, we're also looking at a partnership with Seton Hall if some sort of RITSA project would go through. That's a partnership that I think would grow our relationship with Seton Hall because it's, other than a couple dual enrollment classes, we don't have much of a relationship with them. And they're also in need of fields. For us also, it's an opportunity for revenue growth, whether that's tournaments, hosting tournaments, things of that nature. It provides another revenue stream as well for us. And it also provides an opportunity for us to keep our homegrown students here. What we're finding is we have a really solid rec program and solid private athletic programs, soccer clubs, things of that nature. And most of our top tier athletes are cherry picked and they're going to your Seton Hall prep or going to other schools. And, 99% of that is because of the facilities they can offer. They're gorgeous facilities and host not only statewide tournaments, but national tournaments as well. So there's some opportunities for growth there if you're looking 5-10 years out.
And yeah, sorry, one more question. Just following on that, one other thing I've heard, is it true that scouts coming for like colleges, having fields that our athletes could play on also helps in that area? I don't think that many of them get these scholarships right now.
Again, one of our main goals is to not abandon the fact that we are a great academic high school. We send kids to some of the top universities in the country. Our arts program is probably one of the best around the state. We're still trying to grow that. The athletic side of the house needs support. We did a nice job, in my humble opinion, of hiring a new athletic director out of Newark, who's looking to really grow this program significantly. And part of that growth is fields. And I know she spoke at one of our last meetings, but she ran through the list of what she deals with on a regular basis, trying to schedule our private clubs, our rec, our kids, our different levels, our freshman, JV, senior teams. It's tough. We also work with Seton Hall. They use Underhill. Their track team uses Underhill. And every, I'd say 3 months, it seems like a new private club has been created, either in South Orange or Maplewood, and they're requesting field usage.
But when we're talking about equity, for example, the school sports are not a private club. So school sports, anyone can play. And so this is really the only opportunity for children who don't have the means to join a private club to participate and possibly earn a scholarship.
Right. And to be very honest with you, we're seeing some fruits of our labor. Last year, our girls softball team made it to the state finals. We have one of the best Gatorade athletes in the nation right now on that softball team. And honestly, if you talk to a lot of these kids, one of the reasons they were staying is because they thought a field was coming 3 years ago. And you talk to these boosters and families, and that's a whole nother side of the coin. We have a very strong booster parents who want more. And right now we have a separate subcommittee for our board looking for alternative revenue streams. And a lot of that focuses on our prior athletes and also on our 30 to 40 to 50 alumni. We do a decent job with alumni 55 and older. We don't do too good of a job with alumni between 30 and 50. And so the board formed a subcommittee about 4 months ago, and we're trying to work on those revenue streams as well. So as noted, we're looking for different revenue streams, whether it's grants or whether it's bringing in-house folks in to save us money. We're looking for a variety of revenue streams, especially around athletics, to make sure we have one of the top tier programs in the state. I mean, we do believe our kids deserve that.
Okay,
Thank
I'm gonna, Councilman Haskins.
Thank you. And thanks you all for doing this and bringing us up to speed on this that are new. I want to ask a couple questions. When the community's reaching out to me, what they're talking about is priorities. What's next? What should we do next? That's what they're talking about, and that's what they're reaching out to me about. And they're using information that's been provided in the public. So they're looking at the last long-range facility plan presentation that you guys did. It's a wish list. I get it. I understand that. But just to pick 2 items from that list, accessibility and bathrooms. So those are what the public's reaching out to me to talk about, and thinking that maybe that should be next. And so when I'm hearing you guys address those things tonight, one of the things I think I need to understand is when you say, hey, we're going to do those things in-house. But then when we step up one bullet point in the agenda, you know, it feels like there's a relationship between our current operating budget and what we can do in-house, right? And it seems like we're a little short right now. Things are tight. And when we were on that budget line, when we were on that bullet point, we're actually talking about less busing, less custodial services, and less maintenance. But then when we talk about solving our bathroom issues, we're like, hey, maybe more custodial services. So I'm kind of trying to square like what does in-house mean? Because it seems like in-house things are really tight. So, you know, then, you know, to go a little more specifically, like when you look at the Seth Boyden gym issue there, this is something that's not like just now. This has been on the radar for a long time. And if we were going to deal with it in-house, we've had that chance. And I just feel like when I hear how tight things are in-house, that it feels like that priority might get put off. So maybe there's another way to make that kind of thing a priority.
Yeah, I mean, on our end, I'll touch on the custodials. So as noted, we did a pretty good audit. We haven't been 100% satisfactory rate currently with our custodial. And again, as noted, that's privatized. We use a private company. So part of our work around that was the audit and seeing how we can use personnel better than what we're currently utilizing, and also making sure we're matching up the square footage with the amount of personnel that we're paying for with the company. So part of that audit is showing that we're not where we should be. We actually should be using less, which should reap a decent savings for us. And I go back to the investing in-house. And anyone, you all have facilities. When you have somebody who works for the district, and has, has a stake in the building, that building is usually maintained and is in really good shape. So one of our plans moving forward, on top of bringing back the skilled maintenance folks we started bringing back last year, is bringing back lead custodians who work for the district and will be in charge of the private teams that are in our schools to make sure these maintenance issues are being caught and taken care of immediately, instead of being 20 years down the line where they're in the shape they're in now. So the water infrastructure grant that I noted we applied for, that's to upgrade our secondary bathrooms and water fountains. Knock on wood, I believe we should be receiving that, which will really help with the work we're doing. But the fact that we did bring in an HVAC guy, a plumber, that's also going to expedite that work that we normally went out and paid quite a bit for. So for us, I think we're at a better place than we've been in the past. I can't really speak on the past, only being here for a year and a half. But we have people in-house now that can start these projects and finish them, instead of waiting the usual 9 to 11 months that they had to do in the past by using private vendors. For us, it's having people in the buildings that have a stake in this district. And you don't see that with privatized companies, no matter how great the company is. And now we're seeing what that has left us with. So we've been working on those bathrooms that you noted, the projects at Seth Boyden. They've been fixed 3 times. They just didn't fix the core problem. They went the cheap route. I'm just going to do a fix. I'm going to fix this pipe. I'm going to put the flooring in, and we're going to go. We brought our plumber in. He noticed that it was a lot more extensive than that it included French draining, that also included work that needed to be done outside, so we wouldn't have continued flooding. So I'm hoping our new maintenance team will really get ahead of some of these issues. Because if you also looked in that 10.5 million prioritization, you'll also see a lot of grading, which has never been done here in the past. And a lot of that grading has to do with the flooding that we're experiencing in a couple of our buildings.
Yeah, I want to follow up on that a little bit. So, I mean, I get about doing like in-house maintenance and the efficiencies and the dedication to the projects and things like that. But at a certain point, especially when you have these aging buildings, these are capital projects. So are we saying that the savings between privatization, going from an outside contractor to bringing somebody inside, that we're getting savings from that approach that's going to start funding capital scale projects?
So our biggie, which obviously was the HVAC systems, was done in that last large capital project. Every one of our buildings now has new boilers and HVAC systems. I think we need to upgrade about 2 or 3 more boilers, and that's about it. So from a school perspective in regards to facilities, that's the heart of your operations. Those are all newly upgraded. So issues that they've had in the past that have required heavy investment, we've now upgraded to 21st century technology. Everything's been replaced in that last capital project. So yeah, I do believe now that the heart of our infrastructure has been replaced, and the hope and the belief that ROD grants will be coming out from the state over the next year or so, where we can do the roofing that we still have to do, we'll be in a better place than we had been in the last 15 years. I do believe that.
And I just want to add that as it pertains to the Seth Boyden Drainage Challenge, that was a known challenge. As superintendent did say, the choices that were made in the prior years were to just repair the surface level challenge, right? However, as we move through the use of the proceeds of our bond funds, right, towards the projects that were enumerated and identified at the beginning of the process, it's a sequential process of actually doing that work. As we're closing it all out, we have unexpended balances of probably around $4 million out of all of that, right? So the projects are coming to completion. One of the projects that was considered at the time was to address the Seth Boyden drainage issue. About $500,000 was allocated towards that. It's just that the scope of the project increased beyond the $500,000. And so we have to leverage unexpended balances that were prior authorized to kind of backfill and fund that. We've done that at this point. And so now we can actually begin the process of working with the architect for setting forth a time frame for bidding and submission of applications. So that's in motion. And we want to make that structural change such that we don't have to put the, Band-Aid on this in the future. We want to be able to actually do that so we don't have so we can then approach the gym floor. And we know we'll have confidence that a new drainage challenge won't exist, right? But to your point, it's not that we're attempting to make new allocation of custodial decisions that will fund a capital project. It's just that we believe that we can more efficiently operate in terms of repair and maintenance when we redistribute or reallocate staff. We bid out for a portion, but then we have some that have agency and ownership that are hired internally. We just have to do the cost benefit around the additional, beyond salaries to the fringe benefits and workers' comp and these other expenses that grow when you bring in new personnel. So it's a lot of moving parts, but we believe that our approach as it pertains to facilities is a solid one. We do know that the change has to be iterative over time, but we also know that we're working with very old facilities where we have surprises.
And I think we've been pretty transparent for the last year and a half. We have a systems issue here. There was a lack of systems in this district, a lack of standard operating procedures in this district. And that, from facilities to curriculum and instruction, you name it, a total lack of systems. So over the last year and a half, that's what we're trying to put in place that we hope will remedy a lot of these issues instead of us having to keep coming to you guys. One of the first things we did was pull all the BOCE requests since 2012? And we put that as part of our last year budget presentation. There had to be 15 requests over since 2013, which I could only speak for Amani and myself.
I have to
That's a
say,
lot.
I think that's exactly what I'm hearing from the public.
Yep.
Is that this backlog of 15 years of capital scale improvements for our facilities that you detailed quite well in that presentation, that last presentation, people are wondering, should those be the priority?
Yeah, I mean, for us, after we saw that lengthy list, part of our work around that list was, again, going back to our systems and seeing what we can do in-house. So even with our former director of facilities, we had a plan to address really our major issues in-house. We did not want to come to you guys at all. And that's really something we want to stick to for a while, unless there's a big emergency or something that we really need. We would prefer to really do the work in-house through proper and efficient budgeting, through changes in our system, through changes in what we're doing, so we can fund these things. And again, it goes back to systems change. We need it.
Okay, I'm going to try to move us on because we have people that want to speak to us, and I think we're just sort of rehashing. Mayor?
I guess maybe I should just rip off a Band-Aid. I don't, as it relates to the items that you have listed here, and I think I've communicated this during our Board of Ed liaison and partnership meetings, I don't believe you have the votes on the Board of School estimate to proceed forward with Ritzer. End of story. Oh, I don't need a clap. This actually is awful because I supported it. I absolutely supported it in every single iteration. I think that the issues could have been very easily mitigated working with Hickson residents on land use application, on the stormwater management, on the landscaping, on parking. I think all of those items you can successfully do to have a wonderful turf field. But as a product of, I think, the transparency of the district, looking at things like systems in place, talking very openly about an $8 million operating budget, which you've now got to $3 million, is that you have been so forthcoming. And I'm very grateful to the leadership, to the board president, to the newly elected members of the Board of Education for being that real with the public about the challenges that are being faced by this district, whether it is state issues of not getting our fair share of of funding for the school district, whether it's issues of outsourcing versus bringing people in-house. You've been working so hard, especially with our special needs community, on making sure that their issues are being addressed. I've seen you have to really, really make some of the most difficult decisions. I'm not envious in the least bit of what you are facing right now. You've had to use terms like fiscal cliff to express and project out to the community the severity of what the district is facing. And I commend you for that. But at the same time, when we convene as a Board of School estimate on what will likely be $8 million towards a turf field, it strikes me personally, not speaking to anyone else, as very tone deaf. I think, and I'm not going to put any of my colleagues on the spot because I'm sure each of them has something very different to contribute. We went back and forth about environmental issues or, implications on athletics, which I know it's very, very important for Deputy Mayor Herman, but based on the presentation that we were given, you need to be able to count to 4 on this board. And I could say with 100% certainty is that there is a discomfort from at least 4 members on the municipal side that asking for this type of request at this moment in time, given what we know now from the last time of the Board of School estimate meeting to this moment in time, has changed a lot of sentiment towards not whether it's a good idea, but whether it's an idea we can afford right now.
So I think one of the bigger issues is there's variables here. Our budget variable will never change. Every year we're going to go through this. I'm looking at you and telling you, every year we're going to go through this. I've been a superintendent for 15 years. Every year there's a gap. Every year school districts have to make very difficult decisions in the state. That variable will never change. And if we're looking for that to change, then upgrading our fields will never get done, ever. Because every budget, Jess, come on. Oh, I apologize.
Yes. Whoa. Oh, hold it. Hold it on both sides. Let's not talk to the audience, and audience, please don't talk to us. We're going to have an opportunity for you to come up.
So for us, that variable is never going to change. Hasn't changed in my 14-year career. Whether it's a $5 million gap, $10 million gap from my time in Bloomfield down to Barnegat to here, that variable will never change.
Okay.
So that's my question is then, the variable that can change is the scope of the project. That's a variable that can change. There are other variables that can change, but the budgeting side of the house, it's
Can I ask one
for
more
school
follow-up
districts to
question?
change.
So Superintendent Bing, I'm very grateful of you being the voice, but we do have our colleagues on the Board of Education. We have new members on the board. You have people who were all elected from different times. And so one thing I've always honored and I've shared with the public, it's very tough for me to make an argument against something when you have a unanimous vote of 9 members who have continuously told us this is the way to go. I honor that. Your meetings are closed. So when you're in finance, when you're in FFT, you're having a lot of discussions that we are not privy to as Board of School estimate members, as members of the public. The issue of Title IX has been floated, well, not floated, but explicitly noted during these Board of School estimate meetings. But again, those are internal conversations you have with your attorneys that you have to be able to address. You have that knowledge that we will not have and shouldn't have. That's confidential in nature. So with a 9-member board right now, have you reevaluated this, or for you as duly elected members, of the community, is this still your priority, bringing it to the Board of School estimate?
Well, so I appreciate the question. I appreciate, Mayor, your candor and transparency and sort of telegraphing this sort of change of view that you've had over the past few months. And, you know, I can't speak for the newly composed 2026 board because we have not had a resolution to act on, right? We are still waiting on a number of pieces. We've presented information on what the 2025 board was prepared to push forward. And we realized we had to go back and ask the state for additional state aid, which we are very close to the end of the process of, right? We've gone through, we were trying to go through the Maplewood Planning Board. That's going to happen in a couple of weeks. And we're going to get feedback from them. We're going to hear back from the state as far as what they intend to contribute the debt service aid, which will meaningfully change the cost of the project, right? Is the field piece $7.5 million? Is it only $5 million, right? So we don't know those pieces. We also don't know specifically what it is that we're considering and voting. That has not happened yet. So are we delivering a 9-0 vote? I have no idea, right? We would deliberate in that in public, and we would have the vote on that. What I do know is that this is my third year on the board and my third year contemplating a RITSR change, right? We took a vote in 2024, brought it to the Board of School Estimate. That piece was severed and shot down. Fair, that's the way things work. Brought it back in 2025, had a preliminary meeting, 2 of them in fact, where it looked like we were in perhaps good shape for it. Then we pulled it back for the procedural reasons. I think the sentiments of the board at that time was that we do have a number of issues that we need to address, right? Our facilities are in many places in disrepair. We have a lot of work to renew our very old buildings and get them up to spec, some of which we did in the $180 million prior project, some of which is still remaining. We also have a pronounced need that many members of the community have expressed and many members of district staff expressed that we need to improve RITSR Field because it is required for our student athletes and many other activities that happen at CHS and in our district. And I think the belief of the board during those prior votes was we can walk and chew bubblegum at the same time here, right? There's not a single priority. I tell you, look, being one of the few boards to have a Board of School Estimate instead of a public referendum, it makes it a whole lot easier to come and ask for money. And the number of times that we think, shoot, well, this is a real problem. Maybe we should go get money from the Board of School Estimate. And the answer is almost always no, that's not the right answer. And we don't bring things to you, right? We looked at the significant deficit this year and said, well, should we go for a second question? No, we're not doing that. Same last year. Same the year before that when we had to RIF a number of people. We said, we're going to stay within our financial means and our statutory amount of taxation. And that's what we are, I think what the district is saying they're trying to do with a lot of the maintenance projects that we have here, is that if we can do them within what the law has, for better or worse, allotted for us, then we can do that. We can't gin up enough funds all at one time to go and do the upgrades to RITSR Field, whether they were turf or grass, because the cost, we did get some quotes earlier, and the costs are not that far different. We can't just go and gin that money up, right? That's a thing where we would need the assistance of a bond to do. And I think that's why we have been here in the past 2 years. And that's why we may be coming back again. And if it is the will of the Board of School Estimate to not approve it, that may be a thing that happens. But I think we have to take those steps and find out, how much support does this proposal have on this year's board? And can we find a path forward that does have unanimity? And then we bring it to you folks and see what you think.
I would, if this is a helpful takeaway, because we want to work collaboratively with the district. These are tough things. Like, nobody wants to be here. Like I said, I wanted the turf. Okay. I voted for it every single time. Is that I think direction from the Board of School Estimate. Again, I can't speak for everybody, but I can speak to the discomfort level of the majority. And the majority would say we would ask that the Board of Education look critically at this issue. And certainly I can say for myself, I will honor a decision. If all 9 duly elected members of our Board of School, or Board of Education come to me and say, Sheena, this is our priority. But my mind has changed, at least over the past 6 months, for the reasons that I have described. And looking at a $7.7 million project now, and thank you for incorporating the stormwater mitigation, all these additional items that weren't contemplated or at least thoughtfully planned. So that's honesty and that's transparency, and that's good to have in our district. But yes, if members of the Board of Education, the Facilities Committee in particular, and with your collective knowledge of every challenge you're trying to solve, whether it's litigation or equity, is to really take a close look at this one more time. I don't think that the other items will be nearly as controversial from the board because previously they were discussed and there has been broad consensus around the auditoriums being done and things of that nature. And if there was going to be an additional request, I think all of us have received the emails about the bathrooms. So even if it's a matter of asking for more without perhaps Ritzer at $8 million, is that the bathroom situation within all the schools. I mean, I haven't been in the bath, thank goodness, but we do get pretty regular comments from families that ask us to talk to our district colleagues about the bathroom situation. And that's kind of the feedback that I can offer at this point.
Any other members of the Board of School Estimate?
I just wanted to add an observation. I think there are only 2 words that resound from people in my area of town. And as an elected official, I have to speak to it. And that is affordability and priority. And a fair amount of residents around Seton Village do not feel that we can afford this. And I think we have to hear them. I'm not sure how we go about it. And of course, I've been on the partnership and we've talked about this, and it remains an issue for residents. And as to the bathrooms, I talk to a lot of seniors and juniors, and when children are running home to use the bathroom, I don't see how we're going to talk about playing a sport when they leave school primarily because they cannot use the bathrooms. So it sounds very trivial, but when you speak to mental health and you speak to the stress of our students and you talk to what will make our students happy, certainly the condition of our schools are not part of what makes our kids happy. So,
Anyone else?
Yeah, I do want to stress real quick that the condition of our schools is one of our challenges that is not localized. We have many challenges that are localized to South Orange Maplewood School District. Infrastructure challenges and age of schools are not. It's across the state. We're one of the oldest states in the union. We have some of the oldest schools in the union. So again, that's also the hope that the state offers up some money for us to make those changes. So we don't have to come to you.
I just want to put on record that I'm in agreement with my colleagues. So I'm saying, we're all saying the same thing, but I just want to put it on record that the emails that we have been getting really show that the concern is financial and the bathrooms and all of, everything that everyone has been saying. So I just want to put it on record that I am along those same lines at this point, and has changed for me.
Mr. Chairman, I have one more thing, very quick.
Go ahead, Mayor.
One more thing that I wanted to add for all members of the Board of Education that are here as well, is that we hear the need that you're talking about because we share it. I told you our fields were at 100% capacity also. And so when South Orange went out for our Open Space Trust Fund referendum and the taxpayers voted to approve an additional levy of, I believe, gosh, what was it, Bill? $80 or so a year? $85 a year, is that investment in our fields is a part of that allocation. You're likely seeing that we're adding lighting in different places. We're getting more hours of operation later into the night. And so we're able to accommodate, not just partner, but accommodate the increased number of youth and active older adults who are using our fields at different hours as well. So we see you as partners in the way that we think about our existing fields. If we're unable to do Ritzer, is items like that are less money, that may be natural, grass, like unnatural grass, which isn't really a word, but that we see and hear the pressure that you're getting from the public as well, and we're trying to make those capital investments as well.
Yeah, I think you made a good point, Sheen. It's not only the youth.
Yeah.
The adult teams and
Yeah.
adult usage is also growing
Oh,
substantially.
oh, yes,
Getting
absolutely.
a lot of emails around adult team usage and adult league usage and things of that nature. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yep.
So I want to ask if anyone has any questions. I know we've been focusing on Ritzer, but there were two other items, the South Orange Middle School, about $1 million, and the Maplewood Middle School, about $2 million. Any questions on those?
Yeah.
What
so
is the,
South Orange has 2 theaters. Yeah, it's got a big theater and a little theater. MMS is just one.
I think it's the other way around.
Yeah, MMS is because of ceiling, rigging, lighting. So similar to CHS, it was the rigging and the lighting that goes for SOMS and also goes for MMS. MMS also has a ceiling issue. I think we just talked about it last year. We had a couple ceiling tiles fall down.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's also in,
Why the
And
big
this-
difference between $1 million and 2.2?
we're redoing all the ceilings at MMS.
And you didn't have to do that.
Yeah, we had some issues last year. We thought we had it localized. We had brought actually our own person in to take a look at it, and it's system-wide that we have to replace.
So based on the comments here, unless anybody has any more questions, I just want to,
I just want
Yep.
a point of clarification. When we're talking about the overall costs, so the theaters are $3 million for the theaters. Are we talking about that those who are uncomfortable with the cost are uncomfortable with all of these projects and the cost? Because $3 million is still a big cost to have. So I just want to clarify that. Or do
I
we
can-
want to hear additional
safety.
numbers for Ritzer that might be more in line with some of the numbers that we've heard previously?
I mean, these are continuation items. I think we highlighted the auditoriums like going back several years now, and they haven't had, to my knowledge, there's not been anything other than the change orders associated with fixing them, not adding new items to them. So I
So-
can't say try and save money on an auditorium, but I do see them as necessary inside the schools.
Yeah, I see it. I definitely see them as necessary. All of them as necessary. So I just wanted to clarify because if we're talking about funding, some funding we're okay with, but others we're not. That's
so
all.
I think where I was going with this is that I think the board is asking us to give them, we're not doing any votes tonight. We're not
Yeah.
making any decisions. But you wanted to get a sense, not even a straw poll, but you wanted to get a sense as to, are we on the right direction, wrong direction?
Yeah, I mean, for us, as you just noted, I'm gonna use an analogy here. Athletic fields are the auditorium of the athletes.
Okay. Very
Um,
good, very good. But we don't, let's,
But
anything
you're
else?
looking for us, we came here, we really wanted feedback.
Okay.
And, some guidance in regards to, hey, maybe you want to look at this, or hey, you should look at this. It is a priority for us. The fields are a priority.
But what I heard here is that I think there's a receptivity here to hear more about the South Orange Middle School and the Maplewood Middle School projects. And certainly there seems to be some willingness to work on those. I think $8 million for the field, whether it's turf or grass, is a non-starter. That's what I also heard. Because one of the things about our government is you get to the majority number. So as soon as you get to 4, it stops. So that doesn't mean that it's a non-starter to get solved, because I think there's real issues about solving it. I am not adverse to a smaller project that contains turf, but I think that we can't justify the $8 million based on what we're hearing here. So I think that's the feedback you wanted to hear. And I think we are willing to have more conversations with you about what other type of project we could all live with. But something has to get done. We understand that too. I don't think anybody's saying not to deal with, the auditorium of the athletes. But the auditorium of the athletes, we have to feel comfortable with that. And right now, there's a lot of discomfort by the majority of the members of the Board of School Estimates. So,
Yeah, no, and for us, that was the point of this preliminary meeting. We really wanted to get some feedback, some direction of, what we need to bring back and what that should look like.
Okay.
And the board president also mentioned, I think, President Meyer, right? Is that debt service relief also? Is that you're waiting on those numbers?
That's it, right. So it would never be our expectation to come to the Board of School Estimate and ask you to pay 100% for this project. If the state is not providing that service, I cannot imagine us bringing that forward, which is why last year, when we realized that there was a significant amount that had not been put forward for contribution, we stopped the project in its tracks. We did not say, we probably have the votes, we'll just go do it.
Mhm.
So we would certainly hope that a project we're bringing to you would in fact, have approximately 30% knocked off of it. I don't know if that is making a difference for you folks, and I think we shouldn't necessarily prejudge. Let's see what comes
What
back.
comes back.
But I would imagine we're not presenting that in any event.
We're in the waiting stage right now just to see what qualifies for that debt relief.
Right.
So that's why we're kind of static right now. We're seeing, what qualifies in this current project for debt relief. So we could bring that to you guys so you know. And then also just to hear some other options and to hear some considerations on your end.
So
It's
given
important.
the direction of this conversation, are you still moving forward with the courtesy review at the Maplewood Planning Board?
That's the plan.
Absolutely, yep.
Okay. And that is necessary in order for you to pursue.
That'll allow us to finish our process with the state to get any award of funding they want to give, which would be contingent on us at some point pursuing it. If we don't pursue it this year, I believe it lasts. And if there's a future time at which it seems to make sense, we could continue to go. So we've made an investment here. We've got the dates lined up. We're on the agenda. I think we get that piece out of the way regardless.
It also gives us a good idea of what they will qualify for that funding.
Okay.
Right now, our architects are back and forth in regards to what they'll qualify for that fund. So we'll have a much better idea from the state of what they qualify for that fund.
Okay. So unless there's any further comment, I want to get to hearing of individuals.
I actually have a question for you, Mr. Chairman. During the last, and I sent a message to all of you about this, is that I take responsibility. I did not realize that statutory boards in Maplewood weren't live streamed and recorded the same way that they are in South Orange. We've had requests from people in the community of whether that could be live streamed. South Orange is willing to incur, any partial part of the cost or anything like that. I ended up sending somebody from our IT department just to sit in the corner and videotape for 4 hours that it never actually got to Ritzer. So can we try and make it so that the meeting about a land use application can be streamed or available for the public rather than just the audio?
So
I'll share the cost with you, Vic.
it's not a matter of cost. It's that really is a decision of the board, the planning board. And the planning board is not going to meet until that night. So I don't know. That's the
Okay.
answer. I don't know. I don't know if the planning board chair feels that she can make a decision on this alone or in consult with maybe some others, but we'll certainly.
If you could just pass along and, it would be helpful. If not, we'll be recording with our wonderful employee who came out to record the proceedings and then post it on our
Right.
website.
But in any event, it would be a recording and not a hybrid meeting.
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
Okay. What are the rules? There's a sign-up sheet somewhere? Does that just magically appear in front of me or somebody else brings it up? Somebody reads it?
We bring,
That sounds like a school board president job. Or someone. How does that work? And is there a,
I handle this part.
you handle, okay. What does that mean? You're giving it to me, okay. And,
We have a number of online as well, which I'm happy to tell you after we do that.
that's great. And what's the time limit that we give everyone?
I think it's 3 minutes.
And do we have a timer? Okay.
Right behind you.
Right behind you on the screen.
Oh, okay, all right. And we hold people to that, correct?
Yes.
Okay, all right. I hear you. First person is David Eumer.
I have to amend my remarks because of what's happened tonight, but I want to thank you. David Humer, 26 Nelson Place, Maplewood. And two asides based on what I heard. One, the most successful team at Columbia High School over the last 3 decades is the fencing team. Both boys and girls are in the top 4 of the state. They're in the state semifinals. They practice in the cafeteria. So the focus on facilities is only part of it. And I would say, look at your stipend schedule, because great coaches make much more of a difference in the facilities. I want to commend you for addressing decades of underfunding facilities. And I think there are cheaper, longer lasting, more effective solutions than putting plastic on Ritzer to address the chronic problem that Maplewood, South Orange, and the school district don't have enough field space for recreation. Chronic, you can go back decades. Every Maplewood master plan talks about how we don't meet national standards for recreation space. And we have not added any recreation space for, open space for recreation since Title IX. So it's a chronic problem. And you have 2 mechanisms right in front of you, the Board of School Estimate and the Open Space Trust Fund. Many towns don't use the Open Space Trust Fund as anything but a rec equipment or maintenance fund, okay? Despite what the charter of the Open Space Trust Fund says, okay? Most of those towns have adequate field space. We don't. Maplewood and South Orange could and should use the Open Space Trust Fund as the voters understood it and understand it when they voted to tax themselves. There are 2 properties in Maplewood. They should actually purchase and remediate open space. There are 2 properties in Maplewood adjacent to current public lands, both big enough for athletic fields, both with less than desirable current uses, for less than $7.7 million. These parcels could be purchased, remediated, and converted for public use. The result would provide much more playable field time than the proposal to put plastic in Ritzer Field. The only other thing I'll say is that the combination of a difficult budget year, where you're going to probably see a tax increase considerably greater than the rate of inflation, means you have to start from scratch, all right? But you're also identifying hundreds of millions of dollars in needs of this district. This is a generational opportunity. And I would say to the members of the Board of School Estimate, exploit the cooperative power of the Board of School Estimate and exploit the hundreds of thousands of dollars of years that citizens have told you they want to tax themselves for open space, okay? So that all 3 entities here, at reduced cost to each of them, can improve or expand the recreational opportunities for students and for all our residents. You have a real opportunity to do this. I don't have to tell you, the members who have been on, who I served with 20 years ago, this has been a problem forever, okay? We know this, and all of you want to solve it. So please take the opportunity that we have a Board of School Estimate, that it can be the 9 of you that can fix this. Thank you.
Thank you. Marion Robb?
Good evening. My name is Marion Rabb. I live at 7 Hubert Place in Maplewood. And I too have to amend what I was planning on saying. I am so glad, Superintendent Bing, first of all, that you are looking for feedback on capital expenditures. And you only want to authorize the ones that are appropriate, in your opinion. I just wanted to mention something that just pinged in my mind when you mentioned appropriate. I no longer have any children in the school district, but I did have children in the school district for 17 straight years, starting in 2008 and ending last year. And as many of you know, my youngest son is disabled. He has cerebral palsy. And I honestly don't know how we were able to get him through this district. Between the outrageous ADA violations in every single building of this district, to the elevator at Columbia, which was beyond a mess. And I think I once testified in front of a school board that my son was lucky. He was a lucky disabled kid because he could manage stairs with help of his one-on-one para and someone else. And I also want to commend you, Superintendent Bing, because I have heard just today that major repairs have been done on the Columbia elevator, and it is actually working. Thank you so much. It's not I have no skin in this game anymore, except as a taxpayer, but I am so relieved to know that you have a functional elevator in a school of over 2,000 students, because you cannot run a school of even less than that without an elevator. And I'm not just talking about disabled children, faculty, staff, guests. I'm talking about efficiently running a school, moving equipment, moving books. We had an elevator that was pretty much more broken than fixed for the 4 years my son was at Columbia. And another word came to me when I heard you say appropriate. There's a law called the Individuals with Disabilities in Education Act. It's a federal law, and it affects every single and it protects every classified student in this district, no matter what their classification is. And under IDEA, every classified student is entitled to a free and appropriate public education in the least restrictive environment. And I'd like to mention in my last 20 or so seconds that the hundreds, and that may be a low estimate, the hundreds of violations, of ADA violations we have in this district right now, spanning every single building, including this one, are opening you up to a class action lawsuit under the ADA. And even though I have no skin in this game, I will happily support that lawsuit. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Ben Vitale?
Good evening. Thank you. I sent you my comments earlier, so you know that I intended to talk about three things. Plastic turf is more expensive than grass. Second thing, state adequacy standards consider plastic turf excess costs not eligible for state aid. And third, Title IX does not require plastic turf. But I don't have time to cover all that. You can read what I wrote to you. So I'm just going to talk about one of those things and then respond to a couple of things I heard tonight. So the one thing I want to talk about was that state adequacy standards do not consider plastic turf as eligible for state aid. I can't tell you what the state is going to do because they often break their own rules, but the law says that athletic facilities that are beyond basic standards are not eligible for state aid. It's very clear about that. Now, in other towns, what we've seen is that your architects will check every box, eligible, eligible, eligible. They're just lying. They're just deceptive. They're trying to get the state to, give them as much money as they can. More power to them. Bring on the money. Our district needs the money desperately, right? But I think it informs a question of, morally, ethically, priorities. What's the right call here? It's not easy to see, actually, because it's quite right that time outside in green space, I'm not sure about plastic, but also physical activity is very important for student mental health. It's very important to the athletes and their careers. But the state has an answer. The law has an answer. And the law says very clearly, and the regulations under the Educational Facilities Construction and Financing Act say this stuff is not eligible. In most towns, we don't have a board of school estimate, right? We have a ballot question. And if you look at those ballot questions in all these other towns, the turf proposal's in a separate question, and the basic facilities like the bathrooms and the elevators are in the main question. Why do they do that? It's because the turf is not eligible for state aid. As for the costs, I completely agree with Board Member Adams. I really think the district should get a bona fide estimate for grass. I think that would be a great service to the community and to the board itself. The one that Spiesel Architect has there now is, I'm sorry, it's not credible. Okay. Shared services were an excellent idea. What you see in many other towns is that the district will band together with several other districts and contract this maintenance out. That's a feasible way to do it. The capital costs of grass are 3 to 5 times cheaper than turf. The maintenance costs are between 30 and the maintenance costs of turf are less. They're not free though. It's like 30 to 50% or something like that. We need to see credible numbers. The maintenance costs on grass would be far less than a teacher's salary. Okay, so all this discussion, remember that. Just want to point out that the school district is not on the hook for private teams, private clubs, all these other needs. We're talking about a lot of money here. The priorities have to be for the students and not all these luxuries. Okay, thank you.
Jessica Miller, I apologize. I skipped over you.
It's intentional.
No, it wasn't. It was because I wasn't marking, but now I am marking.
I'm sorry, I don't have an organized, I was taking notes as you were speaking. But I would like to start with Mr. Big, please, stormwater infrastructure is required by law. It is not a courtesy. And we should be especially respectful of that because Maplewood is cutting edge in this state for having a stormwater utility. So, so I've taken a couple notes and I have a daily conversation with my 9-year-old and it'll go something like, I have a headache. And I always say, how much water have we had to drink today? And that's almost always the issue. And part of that problem is that there's no working drinking fountain that's near her classroom that she can access during the day, right? So like, I mean, it's such a little thing, but I think a lot of them were taken offline because of lead in the lines, and so only the filtered ones work. I don't know exactly what the issue is, but it's like, it is something that makes a meaningful difference in a student's day. So, and I have to express a little bit of skepticism that we see like $30 million in like plumbing and bathrooms and that we're gonna do that all in-house with our own funds. I have a little difficulty rectifying that. I also have a difficulty with the long-range facilities plan being presented with its like $423 million list, and then it has $145 million that are labeled as first and second year needs. Yet we come to this meeting asking for a very specific project and suddenly it's like, oh no, we don't do anything. No, we have it. We're gonna pay for it. No, we have a guy, he's gonna do it. He's gonna waterproof the, the gym that's been offline for decades. I have to express my skepticism in what we're hearing. And I have to, listen, nobody wants Ritzer done more than me. I want to retire from showing up at these stupid meetings. I'd rather focus on other things. But we have to do the project right. And you also need to think that no matter what anyone's doing, Ritzer needs to be taken care of for the spring season, right? You guys have been digging test pits all over. I see the lack of maintenance. I go to the Baird. I see those fields over by the Baird. South Orange has got some tips for you, okay? So like talk to them. I have many other questions, but I will email them as I'm running out of time. Thank you.
Thank you. Yep.
I don't usually respond, but I do want to shout out Jeffrey, a great partner, Will.
You have to meet with us more.
I do want to point out that Jess has been a wonderful partner since day one. I think you were one of the first persons I met in the district. Yeah. So I just want to shout out.
Great, thank you. Next up is Jonathan Castro.
Good evening. Hello? Yeah. Let's see. It was in this very building that Lauryn Hill first diagnosed the miseducation of her generation. 25 years ago, she warned us about a system that prioritizes its own survival over the souls of the students they're meant to serve. She wrote a song, The Mystery of Iniquity. She describes how institutions don't just lie, they formalize the lie, legalize the sin, and call it permissible. That's what suppression looks like in 2026. Tonight, you're being presented a clean audit. But that audit that they tell you has an $8 million deficit also shows a 60 million or so surplus. So those discrepancies are red flags. There are expenses that are potentially being reclassified as general expenses. Policies rewritten less than a month before the audit that retroactively make certain things look like compliance. Hill warned us that professionals often use their titles to suppress the truth. They use the titles of PKF, O'Connor's, to show a clean audit. But that clean audit has already been under investigation. Aetna has already also run its own investigation. NJSBA has already distanced itself from that very audit. So when we talk about how these expenses, specific items, how are they being interpreted when you don't see the full budget? When you have to trust the word of the very people who next week are going to be, I don't know what the word is, by the School Ethics Commission. There are 400 students, over 400 students at Seth Boyden without a gym, water pouring from the Columbia High School ceilings, non-functional bathrooms, broken elevators, dry fountains. But that's not bad administration. That is a deliberate choice to prioritize certain things over other things. When you look at what districts like Livingston are spending per student, this district is spending 3 times as much. And then I want to talk about last week's PowerPoint ethics presentation, right? So when you present a PowerPoint presentation for ethics violations while under ethics investigations, that is just shifting how it's categorized. That is legal consultation categorized as a workshop. That is how the budget is being misrepresented.
Thank you. Next up, Jane Conrad.
Good evening. So, in my opinion, when you're looking at capital projects, artificial turf requires special scrutiny because unlike really all other capital expenses that we consider, we know we're going to have to redo it at least every 10 years going forward, forever. And I think that we have to look at the big, not only the initial expenditure of installation, but the big recurrent costs that follow. Reinstallation every 10 years, and then as we know, and is about to happen in a few years with Underhill, there you have to rebuild the base. It's the industry standard that after 20 years, something will have gone wrong with the drainage, et cetera. And so that is another thing that has to be added in. And we know that there are big recurrent costs also to the operating budget. And they're disguised by, if you only focus on what your maintenance contract, which is sort of brushing the field and things like that, that's not going to contain it all. I think, honestly, you've got to look at what are the personnel requirements that Turfing Ritzer would add in terms of security, custodial, and also stormwater maintenance. You know, right now, Ritzer is asking really nothing of you, or it's really not getting anything besides mowing. But this is going to be a whole new facility that will require staff and inputs. And the stormwater maintenance, if you read the manual that went to the planning board, you realize it's, you know, it's sort of a job in itself. And it's what the whole thing rests on in order that it drain well and that it not flood. I also have concerns about the stormwater plan in general, and I realize, I guess I'll get a better chance to ask those at a planning board. But to me, what's been presented, it does not look like green infrastructure. And green infrastructure is no longer like something nice to have. It's a requirement without which a project might not be approved. And, you know, it's a matter of survival for us. You know, are we going to have drinking water? Are we going to have streams that flow, land that is not subsiding? And when you're making an area 80 to 90% impervious, those are real questions. And a project that just collects water and holds it in holding tanks and then sends it all into the stream is not going to accomplish what it needs to. So my concern, well, I'm going to stop there. I'm concerned about that. I just want to say one more thing, which is I love the idea of bringing back skilled labor. I think that's a great idea. We have buildings. Yes, they may be falling apart in some ways, but they were built with materials and to a standard that we will never be able to afford again with construction. So it makes sense to have artisans that can keep them going. Please do the same thing for grass fields. Professionals can yield you things that you will be proud to play on. They can mow your outfield in a different
Thank you.
plan
Thank you.
every year,
Thank you.
and it would be great.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Jonathan Poor.
Hello, I'm Jonathan Poor, Roosevelt Road. So many things, a very interesting meeting tonight, lots of information, thank you. And so, yeah, I'm sort of throwing out my prepared comments. Just a couple of things that struck me, I wanted to just say that I've heard several times, not enough fields, we don't have enough fields. One thing that I noticed from looking at the design of this new field is it actually doesn't increase the number of fields. It's actually reducing field space, because right now Ritzer is a very flexible setup where you have two side-by-side high school-sized soccer fields during the soccer season, and then in the spring season it switches to in the other orientation, and you have a much longer lacrosse field, and it's also used by flag football and so on. So the current situation actually has more field space than the new project, which is adding a softball field off on one side. Another thing I heard was Deputy Mayor Herman, I think, brought up an interesting idea about how perhaps there could be between the two towns and the district some shared professional expertise. The debt service we're talking about, I guess we're waiting to hear what that would be, but this $8 million could be like $800,000 a year. I mean, that's a lot of money that you could, well, first of all, it's money that could be used for other things in the school district. But certainly some of that could go towards expertise in maintaining our grass fields, like our baseball outfields and so on, our baseball infields. Bring that in-house, yeah. Another thing is, again, the cost estimate for what it would take to do grass. The cost estimate is like imagining rebuilding this entire field. You could start much cheaper, just spending some money on the grass field as it currently exists would be an amazing step forward. There are all kinds of examples and models of maintenance programs that would be something like $30,000 a year for Ritzer Field. And then there's a lot of, the final comment is that it's a little frustrating the way this is formatted, where we come up at the end and we try to remember what people said and respond to it. It would be great if there would be some way to have like an informal gathering of people who are concerned about these things and just exchange ideas. Anyway, again, thank you very much.
Thank
Great
you.
meeting.
Okay. We have people on,
Looks like we've got 7 folks here.
okay.
I'm going to propose to go out of order. We have one CHS student waiting to speak. Wiley Borg. Wiley, you're muted.
Excuse me?
There we go.
Okay. So I am a 9th grader at Columbia High School, and I personally think it is an incredibly poor idea to turf Ritzer. This is for numerous reasons, but firstly, according to my sources, Columbia High School, funded by the SOMSD district, is in a budget deficit next year of $3 million and a debt of $190 million. This would be further exacerbated, especially if we were to spend $8 million turfing the field. And now, before we even go talking about spending an absurd amount of money on a very hyper-specific, non-inclusive, and expensive project, let's look at the school facilities. So a lot of classrooms are damaged. Most of them are lacking supplies. The bathrooms are in disrepair. Ceiling tiles are falling. The elevators are broken. I could go on, but I won't for the sake of time. I, as a student, have to deal with this every day, and while the money saved from not turfing the field may not fix every problem within the school, it would most definitely help a significant amount. Excuse me. Spending $8 million to do something that benefits only a select few students is a disservice to the rest of the students and the faculty within the school. We claim to be an inclusive district, yet we allow non-functional elevators and dysfunctional facilities to create a physical and educational barriers for students with and without disabilities. We are choosing to fund a luxury sports field over an accessibility. While I may not be able to name every problem within the school, I can guarantee you that there are many people who suggest places where that money would be better spent that would benefit the majority of the students better than a turf field. And now that's my main point about why we shouldn't turf the field. But I'm pretty sure people have already brought this up, but turf fields are terrible for the environment, like really bad. They not only create terrible amounts of pollution just from the upkeep of them, the amount of plastics deposited, but they release PFASs, polyfluoroalkyl substances, like forever chemicals, which really isn't good for the environment. The EPA and numerous other health organizations have strongly talked against the turf fields, mainly for their health risks. They are incredibly damaging to the environment. They trap an absurd amount of water, and they're also not great for the players. If you fall on a grass field, generally you'll be fine. But if you fall on a turf field, especially during the summer, you can get burned. It's much easier to get injured. There are so many disadvantages to having a turf field rather than just having a well-kept grass field. Thank you.
Next, we have Sylvia Dombey Pearl.
That community member is not online.
Thank you. Next, we have Ollie Gans.
Hi. I will, let me see if I can get my camera working. Okay. Not my best look, but that's fine. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much. I want to thank you all for being here and for your public service. And I also just want to give a special shout out to my mayor, my South Orange mayor, Mayor Collin, for her advocacy for on this issue. I live on Hickson Place. I have a child in the district. I am also editing my statement, the part where I talk about the budget issues, because I think that has been thoroughly described tonight. But what I will say is that despite the current budget situation, the district is advancing the most expansive and most expensive version of the Ritzer Field project, a multi-acre artificial turf complex far beyond what was outlined in the 2019 plan. As we've discussed many times, this has jumped in cost from $2.2 million to now $7.4 million, with every indication that it will get more expensive. And I'm going to say this many times, this is the biggest and most expensive plan, and it goes beyond what is actually needed. The plan also entails removing mature trees, adding significant fencing and netting, and building fields for sports played only a few months each year. Meanwhile, the operating costs of this complex, maintenance, security, stormwater management, and eventual replacement have not been fully accounted for. I'm here tonight not to say, let's not improve our athletic facilities. As Jessica Miller said, I would rather be doing bedtime with my child tonight. But it is an argument for responsible prioritization. As Mr. Bing described earlier, we are cutting costs everywhere. Yet we're pursuing for this the biggest and most expensive artificial turf field. I hear the term equity constantly thrown around when talking about Ritzer, and it's not clear to me why we need, again, the biggest and most expensive artificial turf in order to achieve equity and meet the holistic needs of our students. No one has answered that for me. A scaled back version still meets those needs. This is not an all or nothing issue. And I would not compare the expense of repairs for collapsing infrastructure to bankrolling the biggest and most expensive turf field. So the things that I would ask for the Board of School Estimates to consider is to request a scaled down Ritzer plan that's focused on providing a safe, functional field, not a costly multi-acre complex. require the district to present a clear, transparent prioritization process, and encourage town hall meetings. Someone else mentioned that it would be nice to have a forum to really talk about these things openly. And I think that's something that would really benefit the community. So thank you so much for your time tonight. I greatly appreciate it.
Next, we have Devyani Guha.
Hello. I too am changing my entire little comment. I actually had two quick questions. One is the new LRFP had 18.75 million for structural repairs to MMS. And I'd like to hear a little bit more about that and where that is, it was a first priority and what is happening with that. And my second question is the 2019 LRFP. I guess there were a lot of projects that were left on the floor over there. What is the status of maybe the larger portions of the stuff that was left on the floor? So I guess these are questions, and that's all I have today. Okay, maybe I'll add that I don't think that the comments made about maintenance of turf versus grass, I looked at a proposal that CME and Spitzle did, I'm sorry, I'm decimating their name, did for Westfield. And the cost for maintaining a grass field there was 210,000, whereas that for turf was 140,000. So it's not like turf maintenance is zero. And these are the same professionals who created who are working with our district. So I'd suggest that you at least look at that. I'm not quite understanding why we haven't received similar estimates. That's it. Thank you.
Next, we have Julia Flath.
Hi, thank you for your time tonight. And, it's great to hear this discussion of how to prioritize effectively and make compromises where we need to. I'm here to support having the district get estimates for natural grass fields and what that would look like to maintain them and what those costs would be, so that everyone can make informed decisions when comparing that to the cost of putting down artificial turf. Because ultimately, the natural grass field is a better decision for the long-term health of our community and our environment. And I don't need to really belabor it more than that, but just wanted to share my support of that tonight. Thank you.
And last comment, Jerry Hall.
Good evening. I'm so heartened to hear some of the conversation that I have heard tonight. Really great to hear that we are in less debt than originally planned. However, I do think that this comes down to, like Councilwoman Olivia Lewis-Chang said, it comes down to affordability. Like when we are putting forth a budget for our school district, what can we actually afford? What can the community bear? What can the families in this community bear? Some people have brought up our taxes are going up. Taxes are always going up. There are so many squidgy numbers here that have been thrown around that I really feel like we need to focus on priorities. Sorry, that is my son calling. He just did his public comments. And now he's calling me for feedback. So, getting back to the very serious issue at hand, we do have a budget crisis. We're in a budget crisis across a number of different areas here, and focusing on the actual infrastructure of these schools is so important. Ritzer really does feel like almost an add-on to me. And I was a sports person in my high school career. My son is taking advantage of a lot of the extracurriculars at CHS. So that is it does have a place in our school district, but perhaps not at this scale. So I would urge you, and it sounds like we're going in perhaps a different direction tonight, but to just reconsider the amount of money that is being tossed around for this project at this time when there are so many other critical needs at our schools. I really want to thank you for the thoughtful conversation that I've heard this evening. It is really heartening to see the transparency, to hear that we're, filling gaps. We're, using our talent that we have. But at this time, when people are strapped, and I only feel like it's probably going to not get better anytime soon. We really need to make smart choices that benefit the most students in our district. Again, thank you tonight for this conversation.
That's it. Okay. Anyone have anything else they'd like to say? Mayor Collum.
One of the things that we heard during public comment tonight was about ADA accessibility. And I recall it wasn't the last Board of School estimate meeting because we were focused solely on the Ritzer and what was presented before us. But we had, as a body, spoke about the elevator issue. Could the Board of Ed, unless there's any objection from my colleagues, as a part of the next round of discussions, if there's remaining ADA related items that are somewhere in where you think the long-range facilities plan will go in its next various iterations in future years, could that be brought to the Board of School estimate just for explanation and consideration? Because that is something I know our residents absolutely prioritize. Just a little side note or a tangent here is that the village came in possession of a property in the community that was gifted to us. Long story. But when we did a survey of our residents and we said, what do you want to do first with this property? How do you envision it? It was heartening to see that everybody said the first thing we want to do is make sure that it's compliant for everybody to use it before we even talk about anything else. So I just share that little anecdote is that, no matter how great our buildings or fields or whatever is, unless everybody has access to them, they're not great, truly great assets for us. So if there's, if you could bring that to us as well for consideration, that would be really helpful, unless there's any objection.
No, they're part of that compliance list that we talked about in regards to the 10.5 million.
Okay.
We prioritized ADA, so railings, new stairs, things of that nature.
How, is that elevator that we heard about
It
again?
was done
Is it?
earlier in
Okay.
the year.
All right, great. Thank you.
Okay. If no one else has anything, can we get a motion to adjourn?
I was gonna say one thing. We have had conversations about improving some of our playgrounds for disability access too.
Thank you. We have a motion to adjourn. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstention?
Thank you.
Thank you.